All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS Office Hours. Thank you for tuning into the stream today, whether you're watching me live or watching the recording back here. This is a live Q&A style show where I answer questions from our users about SaberSim, about DFS, whatever you guys want to talk about. We host this live for a reason because I want that live engagement from you guys. I want follow-up questions. I want you guys to throw your 2 cents in if we're talking about something that you've got a take on. So the best places to do that are in YouTube chat here or in our Office Hours channel on Slack. If you're not already in our Slack community, I highly recommend it. We've got awesome conversation going on there every day. There is a link to join that community in the description of every Office Hours video on our YouTube channel. So this one will have that link here as soon as the recording is posted later this afternoon, but any of our past Office Hours videos will have that link if you want to join up. I host the show Monday through Friday here at 2 p.m. Eastern. And once a week, we've been using this time slot to host something that we're calling a strategy session. So yesterday, Chris was on here with me. We were talking a little MLB showdown strategy with the return to MLB here tonight with the Red Sox and Yankees showdown. So highly recommend checking that video out if you are playing the showdown tonight or playing any showdowns or are interested in just simply adding it to your contest selection mix. We think there's a lot of edge in using SaberSim to build MLB showdown lineup. So definitely recommend checking that out. And of course, if you have any follow-up questions or other questions about the slate tonight, happy to tackle those here on stream today. We have been hitting the baseball content hard lately. So our last 3 strategy session videos were all about baseball strategy. If you've been struggling or just want to use the rest of this All-Star break here, I guess the All-Star break's mostly ended, but the rest of this time this week here to brush up on your MLB strategy, definitely recommend checking out the last 3 strategy sessions as well. They will all be linked in the description of this video here. Let's see, a bit of a quiet day here on questions so far. I think everybody has just been enjoying the nice little break that the All-Star break gave us. I do have a couple here to dig into that came in through support. But as always, if you have any questions for me, feel free to pop them into the Office Hours channel in Slack, and we will go ahead and go from there. So let me just make sure I've got the questions here that have come in. I think we are all set. So let's go ahead and jump in. I will pull up the app. All right, and we will go ahead and get started here. So I have a question here from Antonio that came in through support. And I think this is a great place to start. And I think he was actually looking at NBA here for this question. So I will go ahead and switch over to NBA. Shouldn't make too much of a difference for us. All right, so he asked, do you all use the average for the projections? And so I have to enter in what I think the player will get, only asking because I noticed that it gives the projections of Saber always starting at 100 and going down per lineup. Am I doing something wrong or not doing enough? So I think maybe just a little bit of confusion here about the projections and then projected score and Saber score here on step 3. So we'll go ahead and walk through all of this. It looks like we've actually got the NBA slate. There was a screenshot attached to this message that had an NBA lineup in it. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about NBA here. We've got, it looks like the initial projections for Saturday's game, it looks like, pulled up here. So what you are seeing here when you see my projection is indeed an average of all of the players' game simulations we have. So we generate our projections by simulating every game on the slate thousands of times and then taking the mathematical average of that player's fantasy points outcome in every game and displaying that as my projection. So by clicking any player's name, you can go ahead and see what their actual range of outcomes looks like, the percentage of sims that end up with each individual bucket of scores here. Their most common outcome for Giannis, it looks like right at about 60 points. And then, of course, their average projection for that player. With the question, so I have to enter in what I think that player will get. You absolutely do not have to make changes here to projections, right? We have a robust model for each of our sports here. We have a pretty rigorous manual review process. We put our full weight here behind the projections that you are seeing. So we definitely don't want anyone to feel like they must go in and make changes to projections. But if you have a bit of a different take on a player or you've done some of your own individual research, we've talked a lot lot at length about different, more advanced strategies you can use of adjusting certain players up or down to get certain leverage on the field or to take a stance on a player in a certain way. You can do that by simply updating a player's projection. So perhaps if we wanted to be a little bit bearish on Giannis, we could jump his projection down to maybe 58. And maybe that leads to us feeling a little bit better about someone like Middleton, and maybe we jump him up to 48 or something like that as an example. And what this is going to do is it's still going to use our simulation data for those individual players, but it's going to shift every single game outcome that we have in our base of simulations here by the difference between our projection and your new projection here. So in this case, we've lowered Giannis by 4.77. We're going to take every game simulation we have for Giannis, and when we're building the lineups, we'll reduce his projection that he scored in every single simulation by 4.77. And same thing for Middleton. Everything will go up by 4.06, it looks like. I did a little bit quicker math, a little bit more accurately here today on stream. Earlier this week, I had an embarrassingly easy math problem to solve a simple subtraction like that, and I had to bust out the calculator. So I've had my coffee here today on stream. I'm a little more prepared to do the basic subtraction problems. So anyway, let's keep it rolling here through this question here. So I'm going to kind of handle this question in a broad answer. So then when we go ahead and start building our lineups, right, for a typical NBA showdown, typical size contest, we're going to have sliders that are set with a very high smart diversity. What smart diversity is doing is it is using a limited subset of our simulations to determine a player's projection and then whether or not that player is used in every individual lineup, right? So at 10, smart diversity 10, we're actually using single game simulations to determine every player's projection when we decide if they go into the lineup or not, right? So with our adjustments here, it's going to take an individual game simulation, see what Giannis's score was, see what Chris Middleton's score is, and then either in the case of Giannis, adjust it down 4.77 or adjust it up 4.06 in the case of Middleton. And let's go ahead and build some lineups and see what we get out of this. And then we'll talk about the projected score and the Saber score on step 3 here and what these mean. So okay, cool. So when you hit step 3 initially, you're going to see that we pull up. First of all, we build a full pool of 500 lineups and then sort our favorite 20 at the top by what we call Saber Score. And what Saber Score is doing is it is using the impacts of correlation, ownership fade, and smart diversity on your lineup. So in this case, these two are lower factors. We're mostly looking at the impact of smart diversity here. But on a sport like baseball, all these sliders on a main slate or something like that will typically have values, right? So we're combining the impacts of the sliders and essentially judging the quality of each lineup we built by using an algorithm that exactly as this tooltip says, it quantifies the upside of a lineup. It ultimately makes a statement about how good we think that lineup is in a GPP type contest, right? And I think there was some confusion in this question about why this always starts at 100. That is a standardization method that we added here to make it a little bit easier to just see every build you run under the same lens. So your top lineup is always going to have a Saber score of 100. That means that for the contest that you selected, the sliders that you're running, we believe that this is the best lineup that you can run. Obviously, the next best lineups are typically very close. 98.8 is only about a percentage point off here from the top score. All the lineups are generally going to be pretty close. All the lineups in your general pool we think are viable for the contest. This is just a way that we use the principles of what it takes to win a GPP contest to sort your lineups. We do list the projected score overall of what we think what the actual projected scores are for each player in the lineup. That will use your adjustments that you've made to the projection. So you can see Giannis is coming through here and at 58. And that is simply the sum of the average projections of all the players in the lineup. You can sort your lineups as well up here by changing the sorting method to projected score. It typically does not have a dramatic impact on your lineup composition. I actually don't think in this case it's doesn't actually look like it's changing our utility spots at all. So actually, in this particular case, the difference between the projected score and the Saber score is not affecting our lineups at all. I think it's only changing the sort. As you can see, these are slightly changing. It's just a different way of viewing your lineups. Sorting by projected score is going to give you lineups that have a slightly higher average outcome, maybe a slightly higher min cash equity at a slightly higher first place, slightly lower first place equity, right? So just a different method of sorting isn't going to have a dramatic change on your lineup since they are all constructed at the slider settings you originally set here. So there's kind of two different methods of judging the quality of a lineup, both looking at projected score and Saber Score. I'm just making sure I've covered everything here in the question. So, I mean, Antonio, I don't think you're necessarily doing anything wrong here as you're continuing to get familiar with the tool overall and how the sliders work and the Saber Scores and things like that. Let me know if you have any other questions. But that, in a nutshell, is kind of how the projections work, how they interact with sims, what the average projection is that you're looking at, and then, of course, what Saber Score is here at the end as a way of quantifying our sliders overall. So let's see. I saw another question come in here. This from Soji in YouTube, or excuse me, in Slack. And he said, is there a particular browser you recommend for SaberSim? Good question. I don't think I've gotten that one before. It should work for all of the modern browsers pretty well. I would say Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Microsoft Edge, hopefully not Internet Explorer. If anyone's out there, I'm sure it will work okay, but Internet Explorer is not the best built browser. I don't even know if anyone still uses it at this point. Edge seems to have replaced it, but all modern browsers should generally work pretty well with it. I like to use Firefox. That's been my browser of choice. I think I remember hearing at one point that maybe there were slight edge on the performance to Firefox overall, but there isn't really one browser I would recommend over the other, at least for the purposes of using SaberSim. All modern browsers should work pretty well with the tool. So, but good question. That is a new one here for me. What else we got, guys? That is actually I thought I had two. That is the lone question I had in my queue. Again, I mentioned that it has been a bit of a quiet week. I think everybody's gotten a nice little break, maybe a much needed break for some of you, maybe a break that is starting to feel a little bit too long. If you're like me, I am really excited for a full main slate here tomorrow for Friday baseball. But we do have a showdown here to play tonight. Did anyone watch the strategy session from yesterday? And after having a chance to sit on that for a bit, have any follow-up questions? We had a good show there. I know we had some questions coming in right up against the finish line. So if there was any follow-up or something you want me to spend a little bit more time on, interested to hear more about that. What do we got, guys? Any other questions for me here? We'll go ahead and give this a few minutes, let some questions roll in maybe, and see what we've got. How anybody play the Open Championship? How are your lineups looking? I am doing okay. I've got some solid shares of Morikawa and Scheffler that I saw were doing well the last time I checked, but it looks like it has been a dumpster fire here for Jason Day and Harris English, who were also pretty highly owned in my pool. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But anyone, I know end of day one, always a little bit early to judge, but anyone have any strong looking PGA lineups for this week? Maybe anything in the Millie Maker that's looking a little live so far? I always find I end up underweight on Jordan Spieth, which burns me every single time too. So that is probably going to be my downfall again this week. But Norin was disappointed from Joel here on YouTube. Yes, he was. I had a fair bit of him in my pool as well. It's only been one day too. I know these guys can always turn it around. It seems like it's easy to get overexcited on day one, or it's easy to think some of these guys are dust here after one day. We've always got a little bit more time on Friday, but not great so far. Any other questions here for me today? If we have a little bit of a shorter stream today, that is totally fine. As always, if we end up cutting this off early, I will be available in the next hour in the Office Hours channel on Slack. I know without any of these main slates to work with here, I know there's not so much to talk about. Maybe DFS is not the highest on anyone's mind here today. All right, guys, I am not going to take up too much of anyone's time here and have everyone just sit here and look at me while I try to come up with things to talk about here. So I will be around in the Slack channel in office hours for the next 45 minutes and probably through most of the afternoon. If anyone comes up with a question, they want something for me to talk about, I'm happy to answer in the Slack channel. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off right there here for today. A bit of a shorter stream, but I am very excited for tomorrow. Looking forward to having baseball main slates back. Should be a lot of fun. So I will see you guys again here tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for tuning in to our little mini stream here today, and enjoy the showdown slate tonight, and we will talk again tomorrow. All right. Thank you, everybody.